Oh, baby.
There was this one thing about war of choice.
What is war of choice?
Where you choose your own war.
You choose your own war. 4, 3, go ahead, Faye. What's that?
Losing is an option,
It's not an option.
Give me an example of a war of choice.
In Vietnam.
Vietnam was considered an example of a war of choice. What is considered losing is an option?
If you lose, you can live as a nation, but to combat terrorism, you can lose. Losing is not an option.
Yeah, the idea is Vietnam's halfway around the world. You lose over there, you come back home, the war's over. You can't just go home and terrorism stops. Go ahead, Jeff's group, go.
Let's talk a little bit about Mongolia.
What about Mongolia?
That in order to create
Little
the
Bush is a
illusion of an
Muppet.
international response, Bush pretty much went over there and bribed the Mongolians with a ton of money for like 120 troops.
He did. 11 million for 120 troops. And basically, what is this an example of?
It's an example of creating the illusion of an international response and creating a coalition.
Which is an example of?
The Cosmopolitan.
It's an example of a cosmopolitan response. Christina's group, go. Zoom in over here. We don't know what's going to happen.
I couldn't think of anything 3
Go ahead,
months ago.
Zolgarden.
Macville, who bombed the Mura Federal Building in the Oklahoma City, was claimed that it is a criminal act, not a.
It was described as an act of terrorism, but viewed as a criminal act.
Okay, Timothy McVeigh is a reasonable example, and indeed, he basically did a terrorist thing, but since he was an American citizen, did it within the borders, it was treated criminally. Richard, go.
We have like the war on terrorism against like the United States is waging cost $2 trillion, and like you have like the Boston hijacking, which costs like $700,000, but then you have things like the terrorist attacks on 9/11, which only cost like $500. So you see like
the terrorist attacks on 9/11 cost $50,000, but like the attacks on Britain, they had 3 separate attacks at the same time that only cost $500.
Okay, what does this have to do with St. Anthony Cosmopolitan?
basically like you have they have terrorists attack like other countries with at like really low cost, and they have so much more fear and inflict more fear and damage on us than we have over 9 years in the country.
What does this have to do with St. Anthony Cosmopolitan?
Let me tell you something that's good. Remember like the article that's called "Remember What Threw Us in Iraq"?
Yeah.
And it says that basically at the beginning it was a statist response, and
It was the
Saddam
state
Hussein
response
is
that
the
we all
horrible
went in there
guy.
because of weapons of mass destruction,
Right.
and because of like the fear that we had of them spreading
and then
those
it became
weapons.
the Cosmopolitan.
Pretty sure they already said
After we
that.
couldn't find those, we said, oh,
That was
it's
already
okay
said.
Now we should all go in there for the good of the people.
They did say this, but y'all said it more specifically in the article, so I can go with that. Maze group, go. Gotta go fast. 4.
Alright,
You gotta talk about defense or
Three.
something.
Statist and cosmopolitan strategies incorporate the concept of like realism, because if you look at the 9/11 in the book, it mentioned that the cosmopolitan response was to use international law and organizations as a strategy to basically reacting to 9/11. They were trying to do that, but then they kind of just...
Yeah. Do the realists believe in the use of international organizations?
No, they don't.
No, I don't think they do.
Constructionism.
All right, Jeff's group, go. Gotta go.
The Bush administration's anti-terror strategy was both cosmopolitan and statist.
The Bush administration's policy was both cosmopolitan and statist. Has that been said?
2 times.
Yeah, that's been said. They're out.
I'm just making sure.
Okay, Susan's group, go.
Why is my name off?
Gotta go.
With the contractor pleas article, with the contractor pleading on video to, they were going to kill him unless the U.S. left.
Right.
Basically is an example of the cosmopolitan response saying that
No,
they
it's
don't.
not that. No.
Oh my God.
It's the statist response. Like Bush is saying that we don't negotiate with terrorism. And that we don't negotiate with terrorism.
4,
We didn't
Okay, I have something to say after
3. Wait. We need an answer on this. Is negotiating for the contractor is a cosmopolitan or statist?
Constructionism.
Because we haven't talked about this. I'd like to hear this.
And the
No,
statist
can we
defense.
do something
Is a
completely
good
different?
No, you
offense
can't.
against
Because we're not
terrorism.
going to strike
Would be
war
a
on the
counter-effect
statist won't.
to
The
statist.
statist response would be,
Actually, my turn is
okay,
all gone now.
there's a
Oh,
terrorist
is it?
attack over there, so we're going to bring like all our forces together and strike them.
Right.
But the cosmopolitan response would be, since it's a crime on humanity, you know, it's up to, it's just a criminal act, so we're not going to put together our military and go over there and.
So by not negotiating, is it statist or cosmopolitan?
Status.
Status.
I would actually argue it's not either one. When you really
I'd
think
say
about
they're
it.
wrong, I think, in my book.
Yeah, I think that's wrong too. I need a correct answer from Richard's group, and y'all have this one.
If we were allowed to be able to say that the actual views of Cosmopolitan is like the liberalism, constructivism, Marxism, and feminism, and
booyah.
then the statist is only the realism.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
trying to tell you, Greenie.
Did you see my name on the board?
Oh, I didn't. I missed it. Sorry, Greenie.
Hey, don't worry about it.
Yeah, the statist response is only realism, and the cosmopolitan response is all four of the other ideologies that we talked about. Absolutely. Now that we have the blood flowing, does anybody have any questions? You can go ahead and shut down.